보자 헤드라인을 하나씩 자세히 살펴볼까요? 제이슨?
The Seoul metropolitan government has allocated 500 million won to curb a bedbug proliferation problem across the densely populated capital following 17 reports related to the issue.
서울시는 17건의 빈대 관련 신고가 접수되자 많은 인구가 밀집한 서울 전역의 빈대 확산을 막기 위해 5억 원의 예산을 할당했습니다. This is a big problem, isn't it?
It's becoming one. I remember they were talking about this in Paris, I believe it was, leading up to the Olympics that are going to be there next year.
Yeah.
So it seems that Seoul is not immune to the problem going around, perhaps around a lot of different locations around the world.
Right. As of late, 17 reports have been filed related to bed bugs, or 빈대, as we say in Korean. I mean, if you spot them, of course, you want to make sure that you completely get rid of them as best as you can. This is a big problem that the government has now said it will do its best to get rid of as well.
Yeah, before you panic or freak out, I think for the most part, it's not necessarily as prevalent in residential homes, but it's probably more in places like hotels or...
Public transportation.
Yeah, exactly. Places where a lot of people are traveling, maybe from abroad, bringing it in as well, you know, travelers and things like that. So if you've just always been at your home and you've never had a guest, I would doubt that you would probably have an issue.
Indeed. Some reports quoted people saying, you know, I take the bus or the subway or some sort of public transportation every day. But these days, because of these reports of bed bugs, I'm afraid to sit down just in case, you know, it's on one of the seats or something. So there is that fear there. The expression that we'll look at, the first one, is bed bug proliferation.
Yeah, a proliferation could be a large amount of something, or it could be something that is growing in number. So in this particular case, we're talking about probably both, a lot of bed bugs being discovered, as well as a growing number of them. So it's becoming a problem.
Proliferation이라는 단어는요, 급증이나 확산을 말하고 있습니다. Bedbug, 빈대, proliferation, 확산이 되겠죠. And a densely populated area?
Densely populated area, when you're talking about something that's dense, typically it's hard, right? Something that's soft is not dense. But in the same way, if there are a lot of people that are grouped in one area together, then that's a densely populated area. Whereas if you're in like the countryside and more farmland and you have maybe like a few hundred meters or maybe even a kilometer between houses, then it's not very densely populated. But if you have a bunch of tall apartment buildings together, then that's a more densely populated area.
네, 무언가가 빽빽하게 모여있는, 밀집된 것을 dense하다라고 얘기를 할 수 있는데요. densely poplated는 인구가 많이 모여있는 이라는 뜻으로 서울시를 여기서는 이렇게 표현을 하고 있습니다. And I don't know why, but when I was younger, I remember kids used to say, someone's dense, meaning someone's stupid or, you know, not very smart. I don't know why, but they used to say that.
I think it would go back to being something soft is not dense, where something hard would be. So we would say, let's say like a rock is dense. So if you're saying you got rocks in your head,
I see, that's why.
then you're a little bit dense. You got rocks in your head. You're dumb.
Yeah, it's just a colloquial way
Yeah.
of using the word. Okay, well, let me read the first headline one more time. The Seoul metropolitan government has allocated 500 million won to curb a bedbug proliferation problem across the densely populated capital, following 17 reports related to the issue.
The World Bank has projected that an escalation of the latest conflict in Gaza would intensify food insecurity, not only within the region, but also across the world with broader regional ramifications.
세계은행은 가자 지구의 이스라엘과 하마스 간 전쟁이 지금보다 격화될 경우 이 지역뿐만 아니라 인근 지역에까지 여파가 미쳐 전 세계 식량 불안이 심화될 수 있다고 전망했습니다. Now, there's a quote in the headline there, and that was by the World Bank economist Ahan Kosei, who said, this issue is going to be not just for the Gaza area, but in other areas nearby as well.
Yeah, I think the issue is usually with wars, it tends to raise oil prices. And, if oil prices go up, then it tends to, raise the prices of everything, especially transportation costs in moving, the foods and produce, as well as production costs for things. So factories tend to cost more. So, there could be a lot of different issues because of these different conflicts.
자, 월드뱅크가 이제 긴 보고서를 발표를 했습니다. 그 발표 내용을 대략적으로 보면은 그 안에는 food insecurity에 대한 언급이 꽤 많이 되어 있어요. Now, this is a 60-page report. Of course, we can't summarize everything in it, but in that report, there is quite a bit of information about food insecurity. So tell us what that means.
Yeah, when there's an insecurity, it means that it's not going to be stable. So, they might have food sometimes, but maybe not all the time. So you just can't guarantee something. If you think of an insecure person, is going to be not very confident.
Right.
A confident person is sure of themselves and, they get things done, right? An insecure person, you're just kind of not as sure about yourself.
Yeah.
You're not very confident. And in the same sort of way, if you think of a food insecurity, well, you're just not as sure how things are going to get delivered or produced properly.
Yeah. Food insecurity 말 그대로 하면은 이제 식량 불안이 되겠고요. We're talking about the situation where food is not being distributed enough. Of course, people are starving and that sort of issue there. 그렇지만 이제 심리학적으로 봤을 때는 사람이 insecure하다라고 하면은요, 이제 마음이 좀 불안한 겁니다. 그래서 자기 자신에 대해서 우리가 흔히 자존감이 낮다 이런 말을 하잖아요. So that's how you would describe someone if someone is not too sure of themselves, if they don't maybe love themselves enough, you could possibly say they are insecure.
Yeah, I often remember people in Korea would always use the word complex. Oh, I have a complex about my weight, or I have a complex about my skin. I have a complex about something. And the first time I used to hear that, I was always confused. What's a complex? But we don't use complex. We use the word I'm insecure.
I see.
I'm insecure about my weight. I'm insecure about my skin. So we use that instead of complex.
That's a great point there. Yeah. So the next time you want to say 나 이러이러한 것에 컴플렉스가 있어요. You can say I am insecure about my weight, my skin, whatever it is.
Exactly.
자, 그 다음에는요, regional ramifications. We're looking at not just the Gaza Strip, but broader regional ramifications.
Yeah, of course, regional being that area, not just the pinpoint like you mentioned, but in the surrounding area as well, regionally. Ramifications, we're talking about the consequences. Because of this, there are other things that happen as a result. And with ramifications, I think you're usually talking about a result that's negative or certainly very complicated that you might not see immediately like A equals B. It might be more like A equals C divided by like something that you can't necessarily guess or see immediately, but it kind of presents itself a little bit later on.
대체적으로 부정적이거나 복잡한 결과 또는 영향을 ramifications라고 하고요. 또 다른 말로 파문이라고도 할 수 있겠죠. It could even be translated as consequences, perhaps.
Absolutely, yeah, consequences.
그리고 여기 quotation 마크에 들어있는 거는 이제 월드뱅크의 chief economist 에이한 코세의 말을 그대로 인용한 것인데요. 전 세계에 이런 food insecurity가 퍼질 수 있다라고 얘기를 했는데 이제 대체적으로 그 지역, 이제 가자 지구 주변에 있는 많은 나라들까지도 퍼질 수 있다라는 얘기로 보여집니다. 다시 한번 읽어볼게요. The World Bank has projected that an escalation of the latest conflict in Gaza would intensify food insecurity, not only within the region, but also across the world, with broader regional ramifications. 잠시 쉬어가겠습니다.
China has issued local government bonds worth 8.6 trillion yuan or 1.5 quadrillion won so far this year, surpassing the 8 trillion yuan mark for the first time ever.
중국 지방 정부들이 올해 들어 지금까지 8조 6천억 위안, 우리 돈으로 약 1,550조 원 규모의 채권을 발행해 역대 처음으로 8조 위안을 넘어선 것으로 나타났습니다. Let's have a compact look at this news first of all.
Yeah, so financial experts are attributing this surge in the local government bond issuance to the issuance of refinancing bonds to repay maturing bonds. So, we'll have to explain what bonds are to explain that. But basically, a bond is an investment opportunity. So countries or governments will give their citizens an opportunity to invest a certain amount of money. Let's say, for argument's sake, like you invest 1,000,000 won, and then you'll get a interest rate that you receive when you get your money back. And usually it's a long-term thing. Like it'll be like 5 years or 10 years. Now, what they're saying here is some of the ones that they're doing right now, it's not necessarily just because they need the money, but they need the money to pay back some of the money that is expiring now.
So they're paying back debt with more debt.
Exactly. What's the old saying? Something like you're borrowing from Peter to pay back Paul.
Yeah, exactly. Bonds. Well, why don't we get right to our first vocabulary? Government bond.
Yeah, so like I said, a government bond is an opportunity for citizens. If you're investing, let's say like a 1,000,000 thing, then there'll be an agreement. So let's say you can have this, maybe it's a 5-year bond. Then after 5 years, it depends on what the interest rate is. And depending on how reliable the country is to pay back that bond, the interest rate can be higher or lower. But it's usually between, let's say, 1% to about 12%. And it is compound interest as well. So after the 5 years, you're not just getting like, the 1% on the investment. It's compounded each year so that, it should be a significant amount of money when you get it back after 5 years.
Exactly. 자, bon드가 채권이죠. 그래서 여기서는 government bond는 국채가 되겠고요. 이 헤드라인에 나와 있는 local government bonds는 지방 정부의 채권을 얘기하고 있습니다. And so far this year, already, they've surpassed the 8 trillion yuan mark.
Yeah, that is so far this year, meaning up until now. We don't know what's going to happen later on. But if we're counting, because we're saying so far this year, then we're counting everything from January 1st up until now. So during that period, these are what we're talking about.
Right.
If you could say, well, so far today, we haven't had sunshine. You could say, so far this month, we've had an increase in mosquitoes. So far, we're talking about a time period based on how far back you're going with the time.
네, so far 하고 나서 언제까지인지를 덧붙이면 되는데요. 그냥 so far라고도 해도 되죠. So far라는 게 지금까지라는 뜻이고 so far today, 오늘 지금까지. So far this month, 이번 달 지금까지. So far this year는 올해 지금까지가 되겠습니다.
And a common expression you'll hear is, so far, so good.
Yeah, that's
Up
right.
until now, it's been okay. How are you doing? Well, so far, so good.
That's
We
right.
haven't had any problems yet. Who knows what the future will bring, or you don't want to jinx yourself.
Yeah.
But up until now, everything's been okay.
아직까지는 괜찮아 라는 뜻으로 so far, so good 이렇게 말합니다. 다시 읽어볼게요. China has issued local government bonds worth 8.6 trillion yuan or 1,500 trillion won so far this year, surpassing the 8 trillion yuan mark for the first time ever. And let's move on to the next headline.
According to a report in the French daily Le Parisien, at least 2,800 children in France are living on the streets, with approximately 700 of them being under the age of 3.
프랑스에서 최소 2,800명의 어린이가 노숙 생활을 하고 있으며 그중 700여 명은 3세 이하의 유아라는 프랑스 일간 르파리지앵의 보도가 나왔습니다. This is shocking.
Yeah, very, very sad. When I read this, it reminds me of the movie The Pursuit of Happiness with Will Smith and his son, because they're homeless for a certain period of time, anyways. And yeah, so basically you have these people that are living without shelter and kids.
Exactly. I think the exact number was 2,880 something. So it's close to 3,000.
3,000, yeah, just under 3,000.
Yeah.
Maybe a better way to say it.
Yeah. 자, 그러면 한번 굉장히 안타까운 상황인데요. 이렇게나 많은 어린이들이 지금 노숙 생활을 하고 있다라는 얘기입니다. It's estimated, of course. They haven't gone around counting every single one, but it's shocking nonetheless. Living on the streets is our first vocabulary.
Yeah, when you say living on the streets, literally you're saying that that's where they're living. They don't have their own home. So when you and I, or hopefully all of our listeners, at the end of the day, they go home and they have a roof over their heads. You have a bed and a room to sleep in. But these people, they don't have a place to go. They don't have their own address and a place to wash even, to shower and clean up. So, they have to either find a shelter, which isn't necessarily always available, or a lot of people are staying in building lobbies and hospital, airport waiting rooms, places like that.
Living on the streets는 하나의 덩어리 표현인데요. I think you'd always add the S at the end instead of saying living on the street.
Yes, living on the streets, correct.
네, S를 꼭 붙여서 living on the streets라고 하면은 노숙 생활을 한다라는 뜻이 되겠습니다. Another expression used for this particular news is homeless.
Yes.
But it means the same thing in this case. And the next expression is approximately.
Yeah, when we use the word approximately, it means that we don't know or we're not going to use the exact number. We're going to use, as you mentioned, an estimate or, a number that's around that.
Right.
Now, rather than saying, let's say hypothetically that the number is 711, then sometimes you don't want to say 711. It sounds easier to say approximately 700 or around 700 or estimates are near 700 rather than saying 711.
네. 숫자를 이제 대략 거의라는 의미로 썼을 때 쓰고요. 사실 이제 approximately는 대략에 가깝습니다. So it could be above or below. It doesn't matter when you say approximately. Around도 마찬가지입니다. 그래서 뭐 대략 이 정도란 뜻이죠.
And I would say that there is a bit of a cultural difference when it comes to that in news. Because I notice when I watch Korean news, they always try to give the exact number of things on the news. Like I'll hear like the one in there or the six, the nine. Whereas in North American news, I think we like to say around or more than or less than or like they'll
give rounded numbers.
Yeah, a rounded number that just sounds easier to say.
Exactly.
And it's because the number, when you add every 10, every 1 into the number, then it just becomes more wordy.
That's right.
And it doesn't sound as good.
That's
but
right,
I think
yeah.
Koreans think it sounds more exact though. So it's a difference of culture, I would say.
Yeah. rounded number라고 하면은요, 이게 똑 떨어지는 숫자라는 뜻이고요. 영어 뉴스에서는 실제로 웬만해서는 이제 똑 떨어지는 숫자로 처음에 얘기를 하죠. 헤드라인을 얘기할 때는. 그러다가 이제 구체적인 설명할 때 정확하게는 몇이다. 이렇게 부연을 하는 경우가 많습니다. 그래서 이렇게 2,800 몇십 몇 이렇게 하는 것보다는 그냥 2,800 아니면 3,000 이렇게 해서 표현을 할 수 있는데 그때 approximately, around 같은 단어를 쓰면은 되겠습니다. 자, 다시 한번 읽어볼게요. According to a report in the French daily Le Parisien, at least 2,800 children in France are living on the streets, with approximately 700 of them being under the age of 3. Now let's move on to the final headline.
U.S. scientist who first alerted the world to the greenhouse effect has warned that global warming is accelerating faster than is currently understood and will result in a key temperature threshold being breached as soon as this decade.
기후위기를 처음으로 알린 미국의 과학자 제임스 헨슨 교수는 지구온난화가 현재 우리가 알고 있는 것보다 더 급속하게 진행되고 있으며 이르면 이번 세기 안에 주요 온도의 임계치를 넘어서게 될 것이라고 경고했습니다. Okay, so we're looking at decades and decades ago when this was first predicted.
A long time ago. I mean,
Yeah.
I remember when I was going to school hearing about the greenhouse effect, when, essentially the energy coming in from the sun, we're receiving more of that compared to what is bouncing back out. So there's just a mounting amount of energy that's staying within the earth, essentially.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the scientist who first mentioned that is saying, well, things are not looking good.
He's saying that, in fact, it's accelerating even faster than is
It's
currently
worse
understood. Yeah,
than what he'd expected.
So when we say something is accelerating, it means that it's speeding up. It's not going at a constant speed. It's getting faster and faster. And when you think about your car and when you're driving it and you step on the accelerator. And the accelerator makes the car go faster. So when you step on the accelerator, it doesn't make your car go a certain speed. It just makes it go faster than what it is right now. And it's not until you step off of it that you slow down. But you're either going faster than you are now, or you let go and you slow down.
네, 그 엑셀 패드가 영어로는 accelerator라고 얘기를 합니다. 가속 페달이 되겠죠. accelerate는 동사로 가속화하다가 되겠습니다. 자, 그리고 threshold could be breached라고 했는데요.
Yeah, a threshold is actually if you have a doorway. Think of a door, and then some of the doors, they'll have like that thing at the bottom that you might be able to step on to go through the door.
Right.
And that's actually called the threshold. So that's what it is. But think of it this way. The threshold, it represents you sort of leaving the room or being in the room. It's like a turning point. Something changes. You're either inside the house or now you're outside the house. So it's like a moment where everything sort of changes. I remember there's a book, I believe it was from Malcolm Gladwell, called The Tipping Point. And, I like to think of it, a threshold, as something like that, where, you can walk up to the doorway and you can walk up right up to the door. You're not outside the house yet, but once you cross that one thin line of the threshold, now everything changes because now you're outside.
Right. 그러니까 문에 있어서는 그 문턱 같은 것을 상상하시면 될 것 같아요. 그거 자체를 threshold라고 하는데 이 문턱을 넘어서느냐 안 하느냐에 따라서 이제 여기서는 뭐 온도 얘기입니다만 여러 가지의 한계점을 넘느냐 안 넘느냐라고 볼 수 있어요. 고통도 마찬가지죠. 내가 어느 정도까지 고통을 참을 수 있느냐. 보통은 이제 여성분들은 출산을 하고 그러기 때문에 이 고통에 대한 한계점이 굉장히 높다고들 합니다. 남성보다 좀 높다라는 디베이트도 있고요. 그럴 때 your pain threshold is very high.
Yes.
이렇게 말할 수가 있는 거고요. 여기서 임계점, 한계점이라는 뜻으로 얘기를 하고 있습니다. So the key temperature threshold, we don't want to pass this, but it could be breached or we could top that very soon.
Yeah, and basically it's like a tipping point once again. So when something is balanced, it's balanced on both sides. But if you just add just the smallest amount to something that's balanced, it can tip it to the other side. So we want to make sure that we don't cross that point where we tip it.
자, threshold까지 살펴봤고요. 스펠링은 threshold가 되겠습니다. Let me read the headline one more time. James Hansen, the US scientist who first alerted the world to the greenhouse effect, has warned that global warming is accelerating faster than is currently understood and will result in a key temperature threshold being breached as soon as this decade. 지금까지 뉴스캐스터 제이슨과 함께 살펴본 오늘의 헤드라인즈였습니다. 살펴보겠습니다. Paul.
The first cold wave alerts for this autumn were issued in parts of Seoul and the central regions on Monday, as lows plunged by more than 10 degrees compared to the day prior.
전날보다 최저기온이 10도 이상 떨어진 어제 서울 일부 지역 및 중부지방에 올가을 첫 한파특보가 발령됐습니다. Well, it's gotten quite cold. I can see you wore a jacket. I had my padded coat as well.
Yeah, I think you might be foolish if you don't step up wrapped up warm this morning because I made the sound my alarm clock makes when I stepped out the door.
아, 너무 추워서 이렇게 부르르르 하셨군요, 오늘 아침에. 네, 그렇습니다. 오늘도 어제보다 기온이 많이 떨어졌지만 또 어제 같은 경우에는 전날보다 10도 이상 그 최저 기온이 그렇게 차이가 많이 날 경우에는
네.
한파특보가 발령이 되죠. And that cold wave alert or cold snap alert that was issued yesterday.
Yes, saying it would take effect as of 9 p.m. yesterday, and that was
Right.
for Seoul's northeastern and northwestern regions, as well as several regions in Gyeonggi province, as well as sections of Gangwon in North Chungcheong and North Gyeongsang provinces as well. And so the forecast for today ranges from 1 to 12 degrees Celsius.
Yeah.
And that's a drop of about 10 degrees. So yes, as you said, we get these cold wave warnings. And the morning low here in Seoul and the surrounding areas was expected to be 3 degrees.
Yeah.
And the apparent temperature, the real feel, was expected to be about -1.
The real feel, 체감 기온을 말하고 있는 거죠. 실제로는 오늘 서울 같은 경우에는 3도 정도인데요. 최저 기온이 전국적으로는 1도에서 12도의 분포를 보이고 있습니다. 물론 지역마다 조금 더 따뜻한 지역이 있고 조금 더 추운 지역이 당연히 있겠는데 체감 온도 같은 경우에는 이미 서울에서는 영하로 느껴지고요. I think tomorrow some parts of the capital and surrounding areas will actually see temperatures drop below zero. So it's going to feel even colder.
It will. I got out of the taxi when I got to EBS, and the word that came to mind to describe the temperature and the feel was bracing.
Bracing.
Yes, we talk about bracing weather in
Yeah.
the UK, meaning you've got to brace yourself for it.
Yeah.
You've got to be prepared for the cold.
마음 준비를 좀 해야 되는 그런 추위다. Yeah, it's suddenly gotten very cold indeed. Now let's look at the vocabulary. The first one is temperatures plunging or lows plunging.
Yes, like a diver plunging into the water, something drops a lot, drops by a large amount. So if we see temperatures plunge, it means they're going down. The opposite would be temperatures soar, meaning they go all the way up, or temperatures spike.
네, 뚝 떨어지다가 plunge고요. 다음에는 많이 올랐을 때는 반대로 spike 아니면 soar라고 할 수 있는데 여기서 이제 최저 기온이라는 표현을 명사로 low 아니면 lows
네.
s 붙이는 경우가 많죠. 또 반대로 최고 기온은 high 아니면 highs 이렇게 명사로 씁니다. So we're looking at lows plunging by more than 10 degrees Celsius compared to the day prior.
Prior, yes, this is quite a formal expression. I don't know whether I'd use it so much in casual conversation.
No, it's a newsy term.
Yeah, you'll hear it in reports of all sorts, but it means basically what happened before. So if we talk about the day prior, it means the previous day, yesterday.
자, 이렇게 뉴스에서는요. compared to the day prior 라고 해서 그 전날 대비라는 의미가 될 수 있고요. 이런 표현이 굉장히 많습니다. compared to the day before, compared to a day ago. 다양하게 표현을 할 수는 있어요. 여기서는 좀 공식적인 느낌의 the day prior가 쓰였습니다. What's your example sentence?
Prior trips to the theme park have been a lot of fun. So we want to go again tomorrow.
자, 이전에 아니면 기존에 무언가 했을 때 prior라고 하는데 전에 우리가 테마파크에 갔을 때 정말 재밌었다. 그래서 내일 또 가려고 라는 예문이었습니다.
Do you have time? You want to go?
Let's go.
Don't you have to do the show?
Oh.
Sorry, Sue. Gonna go by myself.
Oh
Woo!
no.
It's gonna be
All
cold
right.
though.
It is. Brace yourself. Well, here's the headline one more time. The first cold wave alerts for this autumn were issued in parts of Seoul and the central regions on Monday, as lows plunged by more than 10 degrees compared to the day prior. Let's move on to the second headline.
China's weather authority has issued blizzard, cold wave, and strong wind alerts, prompting schools to be temporarily suspended, with heavy snowfalls expected to sweep through the country's northeast.
중국 북동부 지역에 큰 눈이 예보된 가운데 중국 기상당국이 폭설, 한파, 강풍 경보를 모두 발령해 해당 지역 학교들의 휴교령이 내려졌습니다. Well, it's not only cold here in Korea, but also over in China.
Yes, and they've got it much worse,
Yeah.
especially in the north. If we go right up to the northernmost province, Heilongjiang, they had to cancel flights. They were closing schools. In Harbin, they were suspending primary and secondary schools as well as kindergartens and other institutions for training. And China's National Meteorological Center, the NMC, issued an orange alert, and that's the second highest alert for blizzard. A blue alert for cold waves, strong winds, and severe convective weather on Sunday. And the snowfalls are continuing to sweep through areas of north and northeast China. The first snowfall they usually get around that region is usually late November to early December. So we're getting it a little earlier in the same way that we're getting these sudden drops in temperatures that we might not have expected so early in November.
Exactly. Whereas in Korea, we have the 한파특보. In China, they have these colored alerts. So as you said, the orange alert is in effect for blizzards. And then we have the blue alert for cold wave and strong wind. 이렇게 이제 색깔별로 분류를 하는데요. 여러 가지 지금 특보가 발령이 된 상태입니다. 경보가 발령이 된 거죠. 그래서 blizzard라는 표현을 먼저 좀 보도록 하겠습니다. What is a blizzard?
A blizzard is something you don't want to get stuck in. It's a snowstorm. So when we use the word storm, we usually think of rain. And we can say snowstorm and rainstorm. Blizzard is a very heavy snowstorm.
Yeah.
The kind of snowstorm where your car may get completely covered in snow if you leave it out overnight. So it's very heavy, very windy snowfall.
Exactly. Blizzard, 눈보라라는 뜻입니다. 그래서 여기서 blizzard alert는 폭설 경보가 되겠죠. And it also says that heavy snowfalls are expected to sweep through China's northeast.
Yes, meaning they're going to be moving very quickly through the area. If something sweeps through somewhere, it's moving quickly and often over a wide area as well.
Yes, sweeping through는 굉장히 빨리 뭔가를 휩쓸고 지나간다라는 의미가 있는데요. 중국에서는 특히 이 북동부 지역에 많은 눈이 이렇게 휩쓸고 지나갈 것으로 예보가 되어 있기 때문에 여러 가지 경보가 발령이 됐네요. What's your example sentence?
Oh, last night, Sue swept through the room in a ball gown looking like royalty.
네, 어젯밤에 수가 멋있는 ball gown, 그 드레스 있잖아요. 우리 그 옛날 동화 속에서 나오는 공주가 입는 그 ball gown이라고 하죠. 이 ball gown을 입고 왕족처럼 옷차림새가 그랬는데 그다음에 이 뭐죠? room에서 swept through. 네, 당황스럽네요. 예문이. 제가 이런 적이 한 번도 없기 때문에 이 엄청난 이제 드레스를 입고 방을 이렇게 샥 지나갔다.
It's like in a Hollywood movie or an animation where you see this fabulous princess stride through the room in her amazing dress, which is what you did to last night's evening special. The hosts were very shocked.
네, I'd love to do that with a ball gown, which I don't have. 자, 그래요. sweep through. sweep라는 것 자체가 우리가 뭔가 바닥을 쓸 때, 쓸다라는 의미도 있거든요. 그래서 휩쓸고 지나가다, sweep through something. 다시 한번 헤드라인 읽어보겠습니다. China's weather authority has issued blizzard, cold wave and strong wind alerts, prompting schools to be temporarily suspended, with heavy snowfalls expected to sweep through the country's northeast.
Primary schools in India's New Delhi will remain closed until November 10th due to high air pollution levels, according to a government minister.
인도 수도권의 공기질 악화 상태가 계속되면서 뉴델리 지역 초등학교 수업 중단 조치가 오는 11월 10일까지 연장된다는 정부 발표가 나왔습니다. Earlier on, we saw the expression schools will be, I think it was suspended. So here we have schools will remain closed, similar sort of expression. But what's the deal here? It's not because it's cold, it's actually because the air is too polluted.
Yes, it's not the temperatures that are high, it's the pollution levels that are high. And so we've got New Delhi basically is on top of the real-time list of the world's most polluted cities. As of Sunday, according to Swiss group IQ Air, the air quality index was 471. And that's hazardous. That's the hazardous category. 0 to 50 is good. Above that, when we get to 100, not good. When we get to 200, we start to get to, well, worrying levels. And by the time we get to 400 to 500, that actually has an impact on healthy people, not just people with conditions. And it's dangerous to those who have existing conditions. So New Delhi was at 471. Lahore in Pakistan was at 261, which is considered very unhealthy. And so, yes, New Delhi, the schools are closed for grades 6 to 12. They're going to be given the option of shifting to online classes, but primary schools are going to remain closed until November 10th. And fingers crossed, the levels of air pollution go down.
상당히 높네요. 지금 아까 AQI라고 해서 Air Quality Index, 대기질을 측정하는 그런 척도가 될 텐데요. AQI에 따르면은 이제 대기질이 좋다라고 할 때가 0에서 50 사이래요. 이 수치가. 근데 지금 뉴델리는 471. 그래서 상당히 오염도가 높다.
So anyone, any normal healthy adult exposed to that, that can have an impact on you. And if you're ill or if you're a child or an older person, you could be in real danger.
Yeah, it's the hazardous category there, which means, of course, really dangerous. Let's have a look at the expressions. The first one is to remain closed.
Well, if something is closed, it's not open. So we talk about a school or a store or whatever it may be being open or closed. If something remains closed, it's continuously closed. It's going to continue to be closed until a certain time.
네, closed, 문 닫았다 라는 의미이죠. 그래서 가게도 만약에 closed today, 오늘은 영업 안 합니다 라고 할 때도 그냥 이렇게 간단하게 CLOSED, closed라는 간판을 쓰실 수 있을 텐데요. remain이라는 것은 그런 상태로 계속 유지가 된다는 겁니다. So remain closed, 학교가 문을 닫은 채로 이렇게 며칠 더 가겠다 이런 의미네요. Give us an example.
The store will have to remain closed until the roof has been properly repaired after soup put a hole in it.
네, 제가 구멍을 냈다고요, 지붕에다가. 지붕이 고쳐질 때까지는 가게가 문을 닫아야만 한다라는 얘기였습니다. 자, 그리고 high air pollution levels.
Yeah, in the same way that we talk about temperatures being high and low, we can talk about pollution levels being high and low. We can also say heavy pollution or bad pollution, but high air pollution levels is a very common expression to mean a lot of pollution in the air.
자, 높은 대기 오염 수준이죠. High air pollution levels. 다시 한번 읽어보겠습니다. Primary schools in India's New Delhi will remain closed until November 10th due to high air pollution levels, according to a government minister. And let's move on to the fourth headline.
San Diego Padres infielder Kim Ha-sung has become the first South Korean and the second Asian player to win a coveted Gold Glove in Major League Baseball.
샌디에고 파드레스의 내야수 김하성 선수가 한국인 최초이자 아시아 선수로는 두 번째로 미국 프로야구 메이저리그에 저명한 골드 글로브를 수상했습니다. Very good news.
Yes, very good. The MLB announced it on Sunday local time that he's won the National League Gold Glove in the utility category, which is all about being good at defense and being versatile at defense. And Kim Ha-sung, he's been the Padres' primary second baseman. That means he protects second base. He's spent 106 games in the position, so a long time, logging 32 games at third base and 20 at shortstop. So he's always an infielder, not an outfielder. He's also been named a finalist for their annual Silver Slugger Award. So he could well win that as well. And that honors, the best player in each position for offense. And that's for both the American League and the National League. We'll find out Thursday, local time in America, whether he wins that as well. But certainly to be the first Korean to win the Golden Glove in Major League Baseball is quite something.
It sounds like that indeed. Well, let's have a look at the key term here, which is his position, an infielder.
Yes, if you're on the fielding team, then you are either an infielder or an outfielder or a pitcher or a catcher. So the infielders are around the bases. Like you have one person on first base, on second base, on third base, and fourth base, and so on. Or we have the shortstops who are waiting to catch the balls that come in very close. Then you have the outfielders who are all around the field waiting for the ball to go very, very far. I feel like Ray or Jason can probably answer this in more detail, but I've done my best, I hope.
네, 내야수라는 뜻이죠. Since we're both not on top of the sports game.
Or North American, for that
North
matter.
American sports field. There could be some limits to... but I'm sure our listeners, they're big fans of baseball.
Yes.
A lot of them, they will know immediately what we're talking about. An infielder, 내야수가 되겠습니다. 그러면 이제 외야수는 그럼 outfielder가
Exactly,
되겠네요.
yeah.
자, 그리고 a coveted thing.
Yeah, I'm going to go back 20 years for my example of this, because I think it was very popular here, Lord of the Rings, and Gollum saying, "My precious, precious." Gollum coveted that ring. He really loved it. He wanted it. He couldn't let anybody else have it. If something is coveted, everybody wants it. Everybody's eyeing it. Everybody wants to be the one to take it home.
Yeah, well, you've used it as a verb and an adjective there. 형용사로서의 coveted가 이제 이 뉴스에 나와 있는데요. 사람들이 갈망하는, 갖고 싶어하는 무언가라는 뜻이죠. 그래서 my precious 반지를 생각하면 되겠군요. 예문 주시죠.
The coveted morning special golden coffee mug is only given to newscasters of the highest caliber.
네, 그 존재를 저도 몰랐던 머그 얘기를 하셨는데 모닝스페셜의 황금 커피 머그잔, 누구나 갖고 싶어하는 이 머그잔은 뉴스캐스터 중에서도 최고 수준의 뉴스캐스터에게만 간다라고 하셨습니다.
Yeah, Karen took it last week. I'm hoping to get it this week.
알겠습니다. 황금 커피잔 드리도록 하겠습니다. 자, coveted. 다시 한번 읽어볼게요. San Diego Padres infielder Kim Ha-sung has become the first South Korean and the second Asian player to win a coveted Gold Glove in Major League Baseball. Now let's move on to the final headline.
American IT giants have reportedly spent a combined $42 billion in cloud infrastructure from July to September this year, almost 20% more than in the same period a year ago.
네, 올해 7월부터 9월 사이 미국의 거대 IT 기업들이 총액 420억 달러, 우리 돈으로 약 54조가 넘는 금액을 AI 관련 클라우드 컴퓨팅 인프라에 쏟아부은 것으로 나타났습니다. 이는 작년 같은 기간보다 거의 20% 이상 많은 액수입니다. Right, what sort of companies are we looking at?
We're looking at Amazon, Alphabet, Microsoft, the big three, for example.
Yeah.
And they're predicted to spend even more next year. The Bank of America analysts are predicting an accelerated 22% increase next year to $116 billion. Microsoft has said very clearly it's all about AI demand. People are wanting it. Alphabet and Amazon, they've not been so clear about whether AI is driving it, but I think ever since we started talking about ChatGPT back in January or February this year, everybody's been focused on AI. And these three tech giants, they're all vying to increase their shares in the cloud market. They want to be the ones to offer, these cloud state-of-the-art AI tools and services and so on. So a lot of the money is going in there. It's being invested in this cloud infrastructure,
Right.
which means goodness knows what the internet's going to look like next year or the year after. It's going to
Yeah.
get faster and better and bigger and, well, we shall see.
Well, just the very fact that these IT companies are investing more and more into AI-related cloud computing, is that the term? That goes to show that that is our future for now.
It is. It's all in the cloud. I couldn't imagine that I would have my files floating somewhere on the internet
Yeah.
10 years ago, but now a lot of my files are.
그렇습니다. 자, AI 관련된 클라우드 컴퓨팅 인프라라고 우리가 보통 말을 하는데 영어로는 infrastructure.
네.
네, 그 표현 한번 보시죠.
Now, infrastructure, before the internet, we used to talk about buildings and
Yeah.
roads and facilities, the things we needed to keep a city or a town or a country going. Nowadays, it's referred to in all sorts of cases in terms of the internet and cloud. It's about having all the servers or the networks or whatever it may be to make sure that the cloud can keep going, that it can work properly.
Yes, indeed. Infrastructure. 이제 어떤 기반 시설 말하죠. 그래서 여기서는 그 컴퓨팅 관련된 인프라인데 우리가 보통 한국에선 줄여서 말을 한단 말이에요.
Yeah, but be careful, Sue. You can shorten it in Korean, but you can't in English. If you say
that's right.
infra, we're going infrared?
Infrared, yeah, exactly.
Infrastructure? What infra are you talking about?
그렇습니다. 네, 우리말로는 줄일 수 있지만 영어로는 줄일 수가 없어요. 이 인프라가 어떤 이제 기반 시설이라는 의미일 때는 다만 이제 infra라는 단어가 잠깐 언급을 해주셨는데 우리가 적외선 할 때처럼 infrared rays 할 땐 그 단어가 들어가긴 하지만 다른 의미죠. 그런 의미
Yes.
아닙니다.
So we say infrastructure. We use the
Yes.
whole word in English.
그렇습니다. 자, 좀 길더라도 인프라를 영어로 얘기할 때는 infrastructure 다 발음을 하셔야 되고요. 자, 그 다음에는 a combined $42 billion에서 a combined something.
Yeah, when we use the term combined, it means it's not just one thing, it's several things coming together. In this case, we have the IT giants, Amazon, Alphabet, and Microsoft. So their combined spending is $42 billion, meaning it's just not one company, it's three together. So a combined 뭐뭐뭐 is going to be the total of whatever people or groups have put in whatever amount.
자, 총액이 뭐뭐뭐다 아니면 총 뭐 몇 명이다 이렇게 그 총 액수나 총 숫자를 얘기할 때 a combined 뭐뭐뭐라고 얘기를 할 수 있습니다. 자, 여러 기업이 같이 투자를 했을 때 그 합쳐진 총 투자 금액이 이만큼이다라는 뜻으로요. A combined $42 billion has been spent. 이렇게 얘기를 했습니다. 다시 한번 읽어볼게요. American IT giants have reportedly spent a combined $42 billion in cloud infrastructure from July to September this year, almost 20% more than in the same period a year ago. Let's take a break. 하나씩 자세히 살펴볼게요. Karen?
Some 600,000 young people in their 20s have left their hometowns to move to Seoul and its surrounding cities during the last decade, according to data released by Statistics Korea.
통계청이 최근 발표한 자료에 따르면 최근 10년간 국내 20대 청년 인구 중 약 60만 명이 고향을 떠나 서울 및 수도권으로 이동한 것으로 나왔습니다. 네, 일단 통계청은 영어로 Statistics Korea라고 합니다. 발음이 쉽지가 않죠?
Yeah.
Tell us about the stats then.
Right. So this is according to the latest statistics, and they say that among those people who moved, 341,000 people, they've settled in the capital city, while 15,000 young people moved to the western port city of Incheon, and about 235,000 people moved to Gyeonggi province, where there's also big cities like Seongnam, Guri, and Goyang. And just to, let our listeners know, the Seoul metropolitan area, the greater Seoul area, that's Seoul and then Gyeonggi province as well as Incheon.
그렇죠. 그러니까 수도권이라고 말하는 거를 영어로는 다양하게 표현을 할 수 있는데요. The Greater Seoul area, the metropolitan area, the greater, is it the capital area perhaps?
Yeah, we could probably call it that.
자, 그런데 이제 굉장히 많은 비수도권에 살던 청년들이 수도권으로 옮겼다는 얘긴데요. I presume this is a huge increase from what we saw in the past.
Yeah, so with that, I think the population of the greater Seoul area, it's about half of the nation, or actually it's over half of the nation.
자, 그래요. 그래서 순 이동 인구가 아까 이제 60만 명이라고 했는데 정확히는 59만 1,000명 정도라고 합니다. Let's have a look at these expressions. The first one is to leave one's hometown.
Right. We talk about hometowns a lot when we talk about, news related to Chuseok or New Year's, which is, of course, coming up. But hometown is the town that you were born in or spent your early life, or it could also mean the place that you are currently living in, that it's your fixed residence. So to leave it means you're moving away from it. So you're moving away from the place that either you were born in or you've lived all your life. And these young people in their 20s, they're moving to Seoul.
Leave someone, leave some place. 어딘가를 떠나다, 누군가를 떠나다인데요. Leave one's hometown은 고향을 떠난다가 되겠습니다. If you don't mind me asking, where's your hometown, Karen?
My hometown. So here in Korea, it's a little unique. So it's not where you were born, but it's apparently where your parents or your father was born and he lived in.
Oh, okay.
I think that's your 본적. That's what it's called.
Where were you born?
So I was born in Chine, but I only lived there very briefly.
So you wouldn't call that your hometown
Yeah,
then?
so I think I would probably call my hometown Seoul because I lived in Seoul for the longest time. Yeah.
그래요. 이게 대답하기 어려울 수도 있네요. 생각해보니까.
Yeah, if you
우리가,
moved a lot,
인사도
it could be
많이 하고.
difficult.
네,
Yep.
그럴 수 있습니다. Hail from 어디 이렇게 얘기하기도 하죠. I hail from, and if you come from a different country, it's sort of easier to say. I hail from Canada.
Yeah.
I hail from America. 이렇게 말할 수도 있겠고요. 난 어디 출신이다 이런 뜻으로. 자, 그 다음에는 surrounding cities입니다.
Right, surrounding. Surround something means to go around. So it's all around. So if you're surrounding something, it means to go around a particular place or a thing. In this case, we're talking about the cities that are around Seoul. So for example, the popular cafe draws customers from surrounding areas.
그렇죠. 그러니까 서울과 주변 지역이라는 뜻으로 Seoul and its surrounding cities라고 했는데요. 전체적으로는 지금 수도권을 얘기하는 거죠. Surrounding, 주변. 그렇다면 예문은 뭐가 있을까요?
The popular cafe draws customers from surrounding areas.
그 인기 많은 카페는 주변 지역에서 많은 고객들이 찾는, 이렇게 유입이 되는 카페다가 되겠네요. Well, here's the headline one more time. Some 600,000 young people in their 20s have left their hometowns to move to Seoul and its surrounding cities during the last decade, according to data released by Statistics Korea. 우리 청취자분들 중에도 지금 듣고 계시는 분들, 나도 그렇다 하시는 분들 계실 수 있을 것 같아요.
Yeah.
Let us know where you moved from. If you left a particular area, where did you leave? 자, 다음 헤드라인 가보겠습니다.
South Korea has topped the list of countries Indonesians would most like to visit, while more than 60% of Indonesians also believe that South Korea is a suitable role model for their country's development.
인도네시아인들이 가장 가고 싶은 나라로 한국을 꼽은 가운데 자국 발전의 모델로 한국이 적합하다고 응답한 숫자도 60%가 넘는 것으로 나타났습니다. Okay, so this is a survey done in Indonesia. Tell us about this.
Right, so it was a survey that was conducted to celebrate the 50th anniversary of bilateral ties. The survey was called the Indonesian Perception of Korea, and it showed that 30% of Indonesians who would like to study, live, or work abroad chose Korea as their favorite country. And in second place was Saudi Arabia. Indonesia, it's a Muslim majority country. So
Right.
Saudi Arabia, it's home to their holy city, Mecca. So it's considered a must-visit country at least once in their lifetime. And Saudi Arabia was followed by Japan, the United States, and Malaysia. And those who chose South Korea, they cited higher wages to find a job, better education, and to meet idol stars as reasons for why they chose Korea as their favorite country.
네. 한국과 인도네시아 수교 50주년을 맞아서 이제 주 인도네시아 한국 대사관에서 이런 설문조사를 실시했답니다. 그랬더니 가장 가고 싶은 나라 한국으로 나왔고요. 그 다음에는 이제 말씀해주신 대로 사우디, 일본, 미국, 말레이시아 순이었다네요. 대부분 이제 한국에 오고 싶은 이유는 돈을 많이 벌 수 있어서 자국보다. 그리고 이제 그 이유 중에는 아이돌,
Yeah.
가수라든지 연예인을 만날 수 있어서가
The
있었는데요.
power of K-culture.
네, 아이돌 만나기가 쉽지는 않습니다.
It's difficult even for us, right?
자, 그래요. 그다음에 of course it says in the headline that people in Indonesia also look to South Korea as a role model.
Right, right. So that was 62.2% said yes to the question, is South Korea a good role model for Indonesia's national development?
좋은 롤 모델이다. 응답자가 62%가 넘었다고 하네요. 네. 자, 표현 보겠습니다. Korea topped the list.
Right. I think we've talked about this expression before. We use top as a verb, and it means to be at the top or to be number one on a list. And I think we talked about it in terms of, BTS or Blackpink saying they topped the charts, topping the Billboard charts. So it's good to know that you can also use this not just as a noun, but also as a verb.
That's right. 1위를 차지하다인데요. top가 동사로 쓰였다는 거. top a list. 자, 그다음에 suitable.
Suitable, if something is suitable, it means it's just right. So it's appropriate for a particular person, purpose, or situation. So for example, this TV program is not suitable for children under the age of 12.
아하. 적절하다, 적절하지 않다라는 뜻으로 suitable, not suitable이라고 할 수 있는데 이 TV 프로그램은 12세 미만이 보기에는 부적절한 프로그램입니다라고 하고 싶으면 이렇게 예문을 쓰시면 되겠습니다. Well, here's the headline one more time. South Korea has topped the list of countries Indonesians would most like to visit, while more than 60% of Indonesians also believe that South Korea is a suitable role model for their country's development.
A new study shows that wasabi can improve some types of cognitive function in those aged over 60, especially in terms of memory retention.
고추냉이가 60세 이상 노인의 일부 인지 기능, 특히 기억력 유지 측면의 개선에 도움을 준다는 연구 결과가 나왔습니다. 와사비 좋아하시죠?
I love wasabi.
네, 저도 그렇습니다.
Yeah.
So it's really good for you. Your brain functions.
Apparently,
Okay.
right. So it's an ingredient that's in wasabi. It has a very long name, but they call it the 6-MSITC. And it's already, I think they've done studies on this, and it's already been linked to antioxidant and anti-inflammatory effects that seem to slow down damages to cells and protect them. So they ran this study. It was a trial involving 72 adults aged over 60, and they did this for 12 weeks, and they split them into two groups randomly. In the first group, they took this wasabi tablet once a day, and the second group took a placebo tablet. And at the end of the 12-week experiment, those who took the wasabi tablets showed significantly better performances in their episodic memory. That means they're recalling events from the past, as well as their working memory, which means to hold information temporarily. And this was based on a series of cognitive tests that the researchers conducted on them.
단기 기억과 장기 기억을 이렇게 표현하는군요. Episodic memory. 그럼 에피소드처럼 단기 기억. 그다음에 장기 기억은 working memory. 그래서 긴 기억이라는 뜻으로 이렇게 쓰네요. 일본의 한 대학에서 실험을 한 겁니다. 그래서 일본의 도호쿠 대학에서 이렇게 스터디를 했는데 60세에서 80세 사이 한 70몇 명 정도를 대상으로 여러 가지 테스트를 해봤더니 이제 와사비를 드신 분들이 기억력이 굉장히 오래 가더라. 단기, 장기 기억 다 향상이 되더라. 굉장히 놀랍습니다.
And I mean, if you think about it, 12 weeks is not that long. And if they showed improvements within such a short time, if you take it every day.
그렇다고 뭐 고추냉이를 뭐 계속 먹으라는 건 아니고요. 이 실험에 의하면 그렇더라라는 게 되겠습니다.
Yeah.
Let's have a look at the vocabulary. The first one is cognitive function.
Yes, it's a very scientific sort of way to say your mental skills. So it's talking about your mental abilities. Cognitive means relating to the mental process involved in knowing, learning, and understanding things. And of course, function is what something does.
Cognitive 인지, function, 기능이 되겠습니다. What about memory retention?
Right. Retention. Retaining something means to keep. So retention is the fact of keeping something in one's memory or the ability to retain something in one's mind. So for example, playing games can help children with vocabulary retention.
그렇죠. 게임을 통해서 단어를 오랫동안 기억하게 할 수가 있죠. 아이들에게 아주 좋은 방법이고 어른도 마찬가지입니다.
Oh, yeah, of course.
retention이라는 단어 자체가 무언가를 계속 유지한다는 뜻이 있어서 기억을 유지한다는 의미로 여기서 memory retention이 쓰였습니다. 기억력이 되겠죠. Well, here's the headline one more time. A new study shows that wasabi can improve some types of cognitive function in those aged over 60, especially in terms of memory retention. All right, well, let's move on to the next headline.
Scientists have discovered the oldest black hole yet, a cosmic beast estimated to be 13.2 billion years old and 10 times larger than the black hole in our own Milky Way.
Right, so let's have a look at this. 과학자들이 역대 최고령 블랙홀을 발견했습니다. 이 블랙홀은 132억 살 정도로 추정되며 크기도 우리 은하에 있는 것보다 10배가량 더 큰 것으로 알려졌습니다. Tell us more.
Right. So, these findings, they confirm that this black hole, it formed just about 470 million years after the Big Bang. So they're confirming what until now were just theories that supermassive black holes existed at the dawn of the universe. And they're saying that this black hole, it's a whopper. It's huge. It's 10 times bigger than the black holes in our own Milky Way. And they say it weighs anywhere from 10% to 100% of the mass of all the stars in its galaxy. And it's much bigger than the black holes in our galaxy, which is about 0.1% of the masses of the stars in ours. And they say that researchers think the black hole formed from these colossal clouds of gas that collapsed in a galaxy next door to one with the stars. And as these two galaxies merged, the black hole kind of took over.
Wow. In some articles, it says that this particular black hole is merely, what was it,
470
right.
million years.
Right. Which, you know.
Well, in terms of the universe's age,
Yeah,
I think. Yeah.
that is true. 그러니까 the universe를 137억 살이라고 본다면은 이 블랙홀이 132억 살이니까 굉장히 오래된 거죠.
Right.
There's only 470 million years between those two events there that have happened. Let's have a look at the main vocabulary. The first one is cosmic.
Cosmic. Cosmic, it means it has to do with the entity in space. It relates to the universe or cosmos, especially as being distinct from Earth. So if we're separating Earth from space, we usually use the term cosmic. And I think they use the word beast here because it's so big. It's so big.
그러니까 cosmic라는 것 자체가 우주와 관련된 것인데 여기서는 뭐 어마어마하다라고 볼 수도 있을 것 같고 더군다나 괴물이다 이렇게 표현을 하고 있잖아요. 영어식으로는 그만큼 거대하다라는 뭐 대단하다 이런 의미가 좀 들어있는 것 같고 그다음에 Milky Way입니다.
Right, Milky Way. So, our sun and, all the planets around it, it's part of the galaxy known as the Milky Way galaxy. And a galaxy is a large group of stars, gas, and dust that's bound together by gravity.
Milky Way가 은하수예요. 그래서 이게 마치 정말 우유 같다라고 해서 그렇게 이름이 붙여졌다고 하죠. Your example sentence, please.
My example sentence is, our solar system is part of the Milky Way galaxy.
우리의 태양계가 그 은하수의 일부다라고 얘기를 예문을 만들어 주셨고요. 다시 읽어보겠습니다. Scientists have discovered the oldest black hole yet. A cosmic beast estimated to be 13.2 billion years old and 10 times larger than the black hole in our own Milky Way. Let's move on to the
Britain's monarch King Charles III delivered the first King's Speech in more than 70 years on Tuesday, formally opening the UK Parliament with a rundown of his government's legislative plans.
네, 마지막 헤드라인인데요. 영국 국왕 찰스 3세가 화요일인 어제 의회 개회식에서 현 정부의 정책을 소개하는 연설인 킹 스피치를 선보였습니다. 여왕이 아닌 왕의 연설로는 70여 년 만에 처음 행해진 것입니다. Right. So there's a movie called The King's Speech.
Yeah, Colin Firth.
Yeah. The king in that movie was the father of the late Queen Elizabeth. And since then, we haven't had a king.
Right.
And now we do.
Yeah. So I'm sure, a lot of Britons are getting used to the idea, I guess,
Yeah.
of a king delivering a speech because it's been so long.
Yes, we've had many decades of queen's
Yes,
speeches.
right.
Not a king's speech.
Right. I think there was one case where he did go in her stead and delivered a
right.
speech back in, I believe, 2022 when she was ill. So
But it wasn't in the capacity of a king.
Yes,
Still, he was a prince at the time.
Right, so it wasn't the
Yeah.
king's speech. It was
Right.
the queen's speech read by
The prince.
The prince,
Right.
right. So, it's something that I think they'll have to get used to.
Yeah.
But yeah, so King Charles III, he traveled through the streets of London in the Diamond Jubilee State Coach in a ceremony which goes back centuries. And he began by, of course, paying tribute to his darling mother and went on to list the government's current priorities. And among them will be or are investment in transports, laws to prevent children smoking, which I think is becoming a pretty big issue around the world these days, and of course, tougher sentences for serious offenders. And the Prime Minister says the speech represents his version of a better Britain, and the Labour Party says that it amounts to a pretty pathetic program of tinkering. So it was, like we said, it's Charles' first King's speech as a monarch, but he did step in for the late Queen back in 2022.
And I think he's also looking forward to meeting various heads of states around the world,
Yeah.
including ours as well. Let's have a look at the main terms. The first one is deliver.
Right. So we're not talking about deliver as in delivery, like a pizza delivery, but here it means to give a speech or state in a formal manner.
Deliver something이라고 하면은 연설 같은 것을 한다는 뜻이 있습니다. 우리가 물론 어떤 택배나 소포를 붙일 때도 deliver를 쓰지만 네, 그 deliver 말고 여기서는 연설이나 강연을 하는 것을 deliver a speech라고 하죠. And then the next one is rundown.
Right. So rundown is kind of like an analysis or a summary of something by a knowledgeable person. So in this case, Charles is telling the people that the government is planning on doing blah, 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 blah. They have all these plans. So he's giving a little summary of what's coming up, all these legislative plans. So my example sentence is, our teacher always gives us a rundown of our daily schedule in the morning.
우리 담임 선생님이 아침마다 오늘은 이러이러한 일정이나 시간표가 있단다 이렇게 알려준다는 뜻인데요. rundown이라는 것 자체가 이렇게 쭈루루루루 나열을 하면서 오늘 이러한 것을 할 겁니다 라고 알려준다는 거고 King Charles III의 King's Speech에서는 이러한 이슈들에 있어서 더욱더 앞으로 노력을 하고 매진을 합시다 하는 건 어떻게 보면은 쭉 나열을 한 거나 마찬가지겠죠. It was a rundown. Well, here's the headline again. Britain's monarch, King Charles III, delivered the first King's Speech in more than 70 years on Tuesday, formally opening the UK Parliament with a rundown of his government's legislative plans.
Test takers diagnosed with COVID will not be separated from other examinees during the Sunung exam next week, according to the Ministry of Education, but they will be advised to wear a mask at all times.
교육부는 다음 주에 치러질 수학능력 시험에서 코로나19 확진자도 일반 수험생과 같은 시험실에서 응시하게 된다고 안내하면서 확진자는 마스크를 상시 착용할 것을 권고했습니다. Well, during COVID, they had to be separated and they took the test in different test rooms. But this year, for the first time in, I believe, a couple of years, actually, they will all be able to take the test in the same
They're going to have
classroom.
to. Yeah, they're going to have to, right?
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter if you have symptoms. They'll be advised to wear masks.
Right.
And also, test takers will not be allowed to take exams in hospitals anymore.
Right.
So it's basically back to the way it was. They're expecting just over 650 more test takers this year compared to last year.
Okay.
The education office, they're going to have nearly 5,000 examination rooms across 230 schools.
Sure. And during lunchtime, the test takers with COVID, they will actually have to have lunch in a different area. However, when the actual test taking happens, they'll all be together. But as we said here, they've been advised to have
Put
their
on
masks
masks,
on.
right.
Yeah, exactly. 그래요. 점심 식사할 때는 별도의 공간에서 식사를 하지만 이제 시험 자체는 다 같은 교실에서 정말 오랜만에 이제 모두가 같이 이제 따로 이렇게 코로나 확진자들의 시험실이 따로 있지 않는 그런 수능이 되겠네요. And it's next week, isn't it?
Yeah, Thursday I think it is, right?
Yeah, that's right.
A week today.
아이고, 정말 fingers crossed, good luck입니다. Let's have a look at the main terms. The first one is to be diagnosed with something.
So it's an illness or a disease, and it's when a doctor determines that you have that illness after conducting an examination or taking tests. Usually it involves taking tests to
Right.
really confirm that someone has
Something.
has the disease they're looking for.
Right. In this case, COVID. Diagnosis가 진단이고요. Be diagnosed with something은 무언가로 진단을 받는다. 이 경우에는 코로나 판정을 받는다라는 뜻이 됩니다. 자, 그렇게 코로나 확진이 되더라도 같은 장소에서 시험을 볼 수가 있고요. 그 다음 표현은 to be advised to do something.
You can see the word advise, you can see advice
Yeah.
sort of in there. So that's what it means if you're advised or if you're an advisor, right? Many people have that job. Their job is giving advice
Yes.
to someone else. You don't always have to follow it, but it's probably a good idea according to the person who is advising.
이게 이제 권고한다라는 의미가 되겠죠. Be advised to wear masks. 마스크 착용을 권고받고 있는 상황이다. 자, 그러면은 우리 예문을 한번 볼까요? What's your example sentence?
Players could be advised to wear additional equipment soon. That actually might. I took this sentence because there's a big sort of kind of controversy happening right now in sports. I don't know if you know this, but a professional hockey player died in England. There is a professional hockey league in England. I've been to a
Didn't
game.
know
It's not
that.
very good, but it's for lower end players, right?
sure.
But it's still a professional hockey league. And a Canadian player who maybe I can't remember. I don't know if he's American or Canadian. I forget. He'd played professional hockey in the U.S. and he went to play in England and he actually died because a skate cut his neck. So when I was a kid, we had to wear neck guards, but you don't have to wear it in professional hockey.
Right.
So now they're starting to say, and now some teams are actually just starting to do it.
It could even be mandated
It
then.
could be
right.
mandated. Like,
Right.
to be honest, it probably should.
Should be,
In the
yeah,
90s,
yeah.
I went to a hockey tournament in America, and they didn't have to wear neck guards. But in Canada, or at least where I lived, we had to all through growing up. And it doesn't affect anything, doesn't affect your breathing.
Then why not, I
It's-
wonder?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things that probably, I would advise anybody playing,
Sure.
put on a neck guard. They're not even expensive.
네, 목 보호대를 착용할 것을 권고할 때 you are advised to wear a neck guard. 근데 만약에 반드시 착용해라라는 말을 하고 싶으면은 더 나아가서 you are mandated to wear a neck guard. That means you must do it.
Right. When I was a kid, hockey players didn't even have to wear helmets. It was just
Really?
advised. Some old guys didn't. And then
now?
now they
You
have
have
to
to.
wear helmets.
Oh,
And then
okay.
recently, now they have to wear visors.
Right.
But they didn't even have to wear those for a long time. It was obviously some people might
Yeah.
advise it, but it was not mandatory.
Yeah. Is hockey considered a contact sport?
Yeah, of course.
Because
No, you hit each other.
hit each other,
Contact
yeah.
means body contact.
Okay.
Yeah, so hockey, football, American football, rugby, these are all contact sports.
이렇게 몸과 몸이 접촉이 되는 스포츠를 컨택트 스포츠라고 해요. 컨택트가 여기서는 접촉이라는 뜻인데 하키도 그런 예죠. 그래서 정말 위험할 수가 있기 때문에 여러 가지 보호해주는 그런 장치들이나 장비를 착용을 해야 되고요. 대부분은 advised, 권고가 되지만 또 때로는 mandated, 반드시 착용해라 이런 경우도 있네요.
In minor hockey and women's hockey, there's no contact.
Interesting. 다시 한번 읽어보겠습니다. Test takers diagnosed with COVID will not be separated from other examinees during the 수능 exam next week, according to the Ministry of Education, but they will be advised to wear a mask at all times. We move on to the next headline. I'd quickly like to mention that we're having some technical difficulties and our YouTube live streaming doesn't seem to be working at the moment. We are working on it here at EBS, so please do bear with us. 네, 안내 말씀 좀 드리겠습니다. 현재 기술적인 문제로 인해서 유튜브 라이브 스트리밍 방송이 안 되고 있네요. 양해 부탁드리겠습니다. 지금 저희가 조속히 해결하도록 노력을 하고 있습니다. All right, moving on. This is headline number 2.
Japan experienced its highest November temperature in a century this week as the mercury climbed to 27.5 degrees in the capital, Tokyo.
이번 주 일본 도쿄의 기온이 섭씨 27.5도까지 오르면서 11월 기온으로는 100년 만에 가장 높은 수준을 기록했습니다. Wow. Well, that's not, early winter weather at all.
No.
27 degrees.
Yeah, according to the Japan Meteorological Agency, 25 spots, including central Tokyo, set new record highs for November. The previous record high was 27.3 degrees on November 1st, 1923. And do you think they were talking about climate change back then?
No, I guess not.
Weird that it was hot back then too. Wow. Before all the taxes and
I'm imagining if it's 27 degrees, you could probably even wear short sleeves in that weather.
Oh, I would be.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. Yes.
Yeah, it's about over 10 degrees warmer than it is here.
Because it's roughly in the morning these days around 1 or 2 degrees Celsius, which is pretty cold.
In the afternoon, it's around 14.
Yeah,
that's kind of what I'm thinking.
27. Oh,
Yeah.
okay, my goodness. 자, 마지막으로 이렇게 11월 기온이 높았던 게 1923년이라고 합니다. 11월 1일이었대요, 그때는. 자, 이번 주에 a couple of days ago, I think on Tuesday, that was when the 27.5 was recorded.
Right. A really interesting thing is this November, central Tokyo has so far had 3 days that reached at least 25 degrees. And this was the first time in recorded history that 2 consecutive days in November hit or surpassed 25 degrees Celsius in Tokyo. That was from November 1st to the 6th.
25도 이상을 기록한 날이 꽤 많았네요, 이번 달에. And we're only 9 days in to November, and already they're seeing a couple of days above 25 degrees. That's quite a lot.
Right. They're saying that these higher than usual temperatures are forecast to continue until November 11th. This is according to the JMA. From the 12th forward, seasonal averages are expected. So it's going to... They're calling for temperatures to drop quite a lot in the coming days.
네. 아마 11월 11일 정도까지는 이런 이상 기온으로 굉장히 따뜻할 것으로 예상이 된다고 하고요. 지금 일본 기상청에서 내다보기로는 11월 12일부터는 평년 기온을 되찾을 것 같다. 이렇게 얘기를 한답니다. Let's have a look at the main terms. To experience something.
That means that you've done something or something's happened to you.
Yeah.
You've been involved in a certain situation. So, I think a lot of people have, like I've experienced traveling through many different countries. A lot of people have experienced travel or experienced flight travel, for example.
Yeah. 경험하다 하죠. And experience can be a noun as well.
To have experience.
Yes,
You can
indeed.
use it as an adjective too. Like you're an experienced broadcaster, for example.
Thank you. 자,
And then
그렇죠.
make it past tense then. So you have to say experienced.
형용사일 때는 experienced, 경험이 많은 이라는 뜻이 되고요. 자, mercury는 다음 표현입니다.
Mercury, it really just means the temperature.
Yeah,
That's like when it's used this way, the mercury is going to drop, the mercury is going to rise. It just it means the temperature, but mercury is this silvery metallic element, and when temperatures change, the mercury either expands or contracts, and then that's how you can read on the scale if it's cold or if it's warm.
네. 그 예전 온도계 안에 이제 은색으로 된 수은 요거 기억하시는 분들 계실까요? 수은이 mercury이긴 한데요. 이게 그냥 비유적으로 그냥 온도계, 수은주라는 뜻으로 mercury를 씁니다. 이렇게 날씨 얘기할 때는. 그래서 the mercury climbed to 27.5 degrees. 그러면은 기온이 27.5도를 기록했다. 이렇게 보면 되겠죠. 수은주가 여기까지 올랐다. 이렇게요. All right, well, here's the headline one more time. Japan experienced its highest November temperature in a century this week as the mercury climbed to 27.5 degrees in the capital, Tokyo.
A Taiwanese influencer has come under fire for using an AI-generated avatar for a live eating show or mukbang, drawing criticism from local social media users.
대만의 한 인플루언서가 실시간 먹는 방송, 이른바 먹방을 하면서 AI 기술로 만든 아바타를 활용했다가 지역 소셜미디어 사용자들의 비난이 쏟아지는 등 빈축을 샀습니다. Oh, they were cheating.
I guess you can call it that.
Yeah.
I don't really understand why people got so mad about this, but I don't understand why anybody would eat chicken feet in the first place, and I don't understand why anybody would eat chicken feet for 15 hours.
That's the thing.
Yeah,
I guess
like this
they
guy.
thought, wow, they've broken like a world record or something. This is amazing. Only to find out, oh, it was AI. I was fooled.
Yeah, and a lot of people got really mad about this. Like, apparently, people were really injured. The guy's name is Chen Yiru,
Okay.
and this was in September this happened, actually.
Right.
But if you looked at the small print on the video stream, it said for display purposes only, not a real person. So it said it.
It said that.
Yeah, I don't know. I must have said it in Chinese or in Mandarin.
Right.
And a lot of this Chen's fans got really angry. He lost somewhere from between 7,000 and 10,000 followers in just a couple days in September.
10,000.
Yeah.
Oh.
But you know what the thing is though, like this is one thing I saw is that he's not alone in this. A lot of Chinese influencers are using AI avatars so they can pump out content 24/7. So live stream is like a huge business there. So now AI companies are really getting in on this trend and they're trying to sell these digital avatars to influencers and social media companies. Now, one company can generate a basic AI clone for as little as 8,000 yen, which is just about $1,000. So Korean money, it's about Begman Sashaman won.
Okay.
Beg Sashaman won. So not even that much money, and the company only needs 1 minute of footage to train a virtual live streamer. So for
not hard then.
No, for $1,000 you can get it made, and then you can be making content 24/7.
AI를 사용해서 이렇게 온라인 콘텐츠 만들기가 비교적 쉽다는 얘기를 해주셨고, 그 다음에는 아마 팬들이 많이 배신을 당했던 그런 기분이었던 것 같아요. 15시간 동안이나 먹방을 이렇게 하는 걸 봤는데, 이게 사람이 아니라고? AI로 했다고? 라는 그런 느낌을 좀 받은 것 같습니다. 또 참고로 이 먹방이라는 표현이요, 그 영국의 I think it's the Cambridge Dictionary or the Oxford Dictionary. 이 둘 중에 한 사전에 등재가 됐을 정도로 이제는 거의 뭐 통용이 되는 그런 단어입니다. Okay, so let's have a look at coming under fire.
I think you can imagine that if there's fire underneath you, it's not very good. And there's another term called the hot seat as well. If someone's on the hot seat, they're coming under fire. They're getting a lot of criticism. People are looking at them, saying bad things about them. A lot of times it's because you've done something wrong.
Come under fire는 비난받다라는 뜻입니다. So this influencer came under fire.
Yeah, a lot of people are all eyes are on this person. People are looking at this person and questioning what they did.
Another expression that pretty much means the same thing is to draw criticism.
Yeah, exactly. To draw something means to receive it.
Yeah.
So receiving a lot of criticism at the moment.
네, 같은 뜻입니다. 비난을 사다, 비난을 받다.
You can also look at coming under fire as like scrutiny as well. People are starting to look at this person.
Yeah.
Okay, what is it you're doing? Oh, I don't think that's right.
Exactly. 자, 그래요. Come under fire 아니면 in hot water라고도 할 수 있을 텐데 비난을 받다. Draw criticism from someone. 누군가로부터 역시 비난을 받다. 다시 읽어보겠습니다. A Taiwanese influencer has come under fire for using an AI-generated avatar for a live eating show or mukbang, drawing criticism from local social media users.
A study has found that since 1978, the ice shelves supporting northern Greenland's glaciers have lost more than 35% of their total volume, with 3 ice shelves having collapsed since the early 2000s.
최근 연구 결과에 따르면 북극의 북그린란드 전체 빙붕 부피가 1978년 이후 35% 이상 감소했으며 이중 빙붕 3개는 2000년대 초 이후 완전히 붕괴한 것으로 나타났습니다. Again, we're looking at a climate issue.
Yeah, we sure
Yeah.
are.
And we do this quite a lot these days, but tell us about this.
Too bad it's not the 1920s. We wouldn't even have to be
yeah.
talking about it, even though it was still hot back
It
then.
wasn't an issue. Or
No.
I guess it wasn't really a term that was used.
Governments didn't figure out, and companies didn't figure out they could talk about it, and newspapers figured out they couldn't write about it.
So tell us about this.
Well, so this one, the ice shelf. So what's an ice shelf? I guess we should start with that. It was described in one article I read as tongues of floating ice that jut out over the ocean, and they actually act as dams that hold back glaciers on land and they slow ice loss. So when they melt or weaken, then more of these land-based ice is able to slide into the ocean, and what happens then? Sea levels rise. That's the big issue here, is that it'll lead to rising sea levels.
빙붕을요 영어로 이제 아이스 쉘프라고 하는데 이 그 정의가 또 재밌네요. Tongues of floating ice. 물 위에 떠다니는 얼음 혀라는 거죠. 그렇게 생겼다라는 얘기가 되겠습니다. Right, let's have a look at the main expressions. The first one is the total volume of something.
The amount. So anyone who's working in a company sometimes might hear about their sales volume. So if the sales volume increased, it means you made more sales. So there's a higher amount of sales. If sales volume decreased, obviously you made less sales.
그러면은 이 볼륨이라는 게 그때는 어떤 총량, 총 어떤 수치를 말한다고 볼 수 있겠는데요. 단어 자체는 원래 부피죠. 그래서 total volume 그러면 전체 부피이지만 때로는 이렇게 비유적으로 우리의 영업 이익이, 영업 손실이 이만했다라는 얘기를 할 때도 the total volume of sales was blah 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 이렇게 얘기할 수 있습니다. The next one is to collapse.
If something or someone collapses, they fall to the ground. So if it's a person, they fall over, right? A lot of times from maybe they faint or they have an injury, something along those lines. If a building or a structure collapses, then it breaks. So then it probably, it collapses often into many pieces.
collapse는 붕괴한다는 뜻입니다. Alright, so it could be a person or a thing. 사람이든 아니면 뭐 어떤 물체나 물건이 무너져 내릴 때, 붕괴할 때 collapse 한다라고 하죠.
Usually we'd be talking about buildings or
Yeah.
bridges.
It's not a small thing.
No, not really, no.
Okay, well here it is one more time. A study has found that since 1978, the ice shelves supporting northern Greenland's glaciers have lost more than 35% of their total volume, with 3 ice shelves having collapsed since the early 2000s.
The largest internally flawless, fancy, vivid blue diamond ever put up for auction has sold for a staggering $43.8 million at a Christie's sale of rare jewels in Geneva.
스위스 제네바에서 열린 크리스티의 희귀 보석 경매에서 역대 가장 크고 내부 결함 없는 최상급 푸른 다이아몬드가 매물로 나와 4,380만 달러, 우리 돈으로 약 571억 원이라는 거액에 낙찰됐습니다. The first time I saw this headline, I thought, how many adjectives are describing the word diamond? But this was actually used. I believe it was in Reuters. So we're just going to go with that. It's largest, internally flawless, fancy, vivid, blue.
Yeah, you know my issues with Reuters. Sometimes it's not the most natural English, depending
Wow.
on the journalist. But nonetheless,
실제로 사용된 그 문구를 저희가 활용을 해본 건데요. 정말 이 꾸며주는 수식어들이 많죠. Go on. Yeah, tell us about this.
So this vivid blue diamond, so if something is vivid, it's very clear, right? Like vivid colors, for example. So the color is very, very clear and very, very bright. It's known as a blue royale. I imagine it's royale. It looks like it's probably French, and it's set into a ring. It's among the rarest ever unearthed. Wow. 17.6 carats. And the diamond has an estimated value, had an estimated value prior to the sale of $50 million. So came in a little bit less than that, but that is what they were expecting. One other interesting thing at this, in a separate sale on Monday, Christie sold a Rolex watch worn by Marlon Brando in the movie Apocalypse Now, which is really famous movie.
Yeah.
It sold for just under $5 million. And he actually had his signature engraved on the back of it.
No way.
So just 2 years ago, that same watch sold for about actually even less than half. So just in 2 years, the owner has made over $2 million profit on that investment.
That was a good
It
investment
was
then.
a very good investment.
와우. 자, 이 크리스티스 옥션에서 팔린 요 블루 다이아몬드 말고도 굉장히 유명한 그 시계. 멀런 브란도 배우가 찼었던 요 시계가 또 몇 년 만에 한 가격이 2배나 껑충 뛰어가지고요. 한 2, 3년 전이라고 했나요? 그때도 옥션에 나왔었는데 그때 가격보다 지금 2배 이상이 뛰어서 상당히 고가에 팔렸다라고 하고
Must have been hard to part with that Marlon Brando wristwatch,
Yeah.
but you know, it looks like they made an offer you couldn't refuse.
Exactly. 자, 이 블루 다이아몬드는 일단은 수식어가 많은데 the largest internally flawless 보겠습니다. Flawless, what does that mean?
Well, a flaw is a problem. We always, you know, everybody has flaws.
Yeah.
But if you talk about flawless, then it means there is no problem. It is perfect. It's without a single flaw.
Yeah. I don't think anyone is flawless in the
No.
world.
No.
But this
This
diamond,
diamond
is
is, yeah.
사람은 흠이 없을 수가 없죠. 네, 흠이라는 뜻의 flaw, 그다음에 뒤에 less를 붙임으로 인해서 흠이 하나도 없다, 완벽하다, 결점이 없는 이런 뜻이 되겠고요.
I would rather be called flawless than useless. Wouldn't you?
Yeah,
Much better.
of course.
Right.
네, 뭐가 없는 것 중에서는 좀 좋은 단어네요. flawless, 흠이 없다. 자, 그다음에는 put something up for auction.
That means it's going to be sold at auction.
Yeah.
That's simply all it means.
경매에 붙이다라는 뜻입니다. Put up for auction. Well, here it is one more time. The largest internally flawless, fancy, vivid blue diamond ever put up for auction has sold for a staggering $43.8 million at a Christie's sale of rare jewels in Geneva. And that's it for our headlines.